Welcome into our PIAA preview of AAA 107 to 145. Greg Warnock, Jeff Upson with you here. Typically, we got War Up, Jeff, that we do each week, but we're sticking just on AAA 107 to 145 because, let's face it, it's all statewide now at this point. You've done a couple of double A's already. You got the AAA here tonight. A lot to break down.
I mean, a ton to break down, right? I mean, I just got done with Double A, a couple hours of Double A breaking down. Got the kid to bed, had a cup of coffee. So now let's rock and roll with Triple A, Greg. And Greg, you're not really going out of your comfort zone. You're used to calling matches all across the state. I mean, you are the voice of WJPA at Hershey, so you're not really. You see a lot of these wrestlers, right? You see a lot of these wrestlers, not just in the WPIAL. So it's not like you're in foreign territory or uncharted waters here.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, definitely something seen a lot of throughout the years. I couldn't even remember, Jeff, when I started with WJPA. It's got to be at least 10, somewhere between 10 and 12 years ago as far as being up there at Hershey. So definitely have seen all these kids throughout their career to this point, and some just getting started, right? So let's dive in, though, Jeff, at 107 pounds. And you look at the bracket and how it shakes out. Tanner Mazanko of Cannon McMillan sits at the top of the bracket. Luke Sirianni also at the top half. You got Thunderbird and Colby Martinelli all sitting at the top as far as top guys. You look at the rankings, you have essentially 2 through 5 right at the top. You got the best guy down the bottom, right? Keanu Dillard, Bethlehem Catholic. Let's first start on the top half of the bracket, Jeff. Has a makings of some really great quarterfinal matches, provided Mazanko, Sirianni, Bird, and Martinelli all win.
I think you called him Thunderbird, which I really like. I think we're gonna keep that instead of Thunderbeard. Let's Thunderbird. I love, like, that is awesome. Thunderbeard bird. We're gonna go with that.
See, I'm already messing up.
Yeah, of course it's a Central Dolphin kid of all kids. That's which one you're gonna mess up.
Maybe I should do that on purpose for all the Central Dolphin kids,
You
right?
probably should. Yeah. So the top half is there's a lot of firepower in the top half. Tanner Mazanko, we got to give Tanner Mazanko a shout out. I mean, he wrestled his tail off at the WPIAL tournament, and he kind of had a chip on his shoulder going into it, and he beat up Santino Sloboda. Sloboda did not look like himself, in my opinion. He didn't look like, I don't know if he was sick, I don't know what, but he didn't look like the Santino that I seen earlier in the year. But that's not to take away what Tanner Mazanko was able to do. He had looked great. You mentioned Luke Sirianni of Abington Heights on the top half. Luke is a senior. He's going to Army. He's a 2-time state medalist already. Finished 6th 2 years ago, 7th last year. And last year he was in the conversation of, hey, is he going to be a finalist here? I think a lot of people, when you're at 107 and you're a junior, and now he's a senior at 107, that's going to bode pretty well for you, right? And he's on the top half with Mazanko. He's away from Dillard, where he had lost to him in the regional finals. I think he has a favorable matchup with Brody Bishop from Hickory, but I do like Bishop. He's had some really good wins this year from Hickory down or up to AAA this year. I like the Thunderbird. I'm going to use that. The Thunderbeard and Nick Salamone match, 4 versus the 12. Martinelli's a stud. He's really good. He has a win over Thunderbeard already this year. And Beard has a win over Mazanko, right? If you remember that team state tournament, he had a kind of back and forth fluky match with him. He ended up winning that match, which was really critical for Central Dolphin beating Cannon Mac. But Martinelli is kind of like the steady horse here on that bottom quadrant of the top half. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Sirianni and Martinelli semifinal here, which we'll go over our picks here in a little bit. But yeah, there's a lot of firepower here on the top half. I do like the big name guys like Beard, like Martinelli, and Sirianni and Mazanko to be kind of the guys that come out.
Yeah, and you look at the way you mentioned Mazanko. I mean, he looked fantastic, right? Just absolutely dominated the WPIL. And whether Sloboda was not 100% or not, Mazenko took it to him and just in total dominating fashion. And the question is, I mean, you look at Mazenko, they kind of yo-yoed him up and down the lineup on team's part, right? Just to make sure to get the favorable matchups between he and Collier Hartman. So now that he's at consistent force here at 107, can he turn it to another notch? So I think that match with Sirianni is going to be a great one in the quarterfinals. And, a guy who I thought was really impressive in the Whippeal tournament. I don't expect him to upset Martinelli, but Hira Montoya of Mount Lebanon had a
Yeah.
really good tournament
Yeah,
to
no.
make it to the state tournament.
He did, and he was kind of, I would say Dylan Barrett too, as well, from Penn Trafford, had a good tournament. I mean, Penn Trafford just had the best tournament of any team there. I mean, my gosh, I'm so impressed with Penn Trafford and the way they wrestled. On the bottom half, though, there's a lot better first round matchups. I'd say the top half, it's probably going to go chalk. But on the bottom half, two pigtails that I'm really looking forward to is William Yorty and Dorian Hoffman. Yorty's a freshman from Gettysburg. Got to see him a whole bunch this year. And Dorian Hoffman is actually a guy who was in the Surge tournament. He's a senior, right? He's a senior. He's a guy who's been here before. He's been close to being here before. He was regional fifth last year. I think that's a really good matchup, 12 Hoffman versus 15 Yorty. I also like Connor Linehan from Council Rock South. He is another one. He was close to making it here before. He's 11 in the state as a junior, him and Dylan Barrett at number 14. Barrett is just, all the Penn Trafford guys wrestled really tough. Barrett has wrestled really well, has a win over Brody Bishop this year. Has a few losses to Sloboda, to Baker, Swank, Kolb. He's battle tested, though. Penn Trafford had a really tough schedule this year. And that's not to mention, that's only the pigtails. And those first round matches, Max Tancini, Santino Sloboda, you better watch that match. These are two high-level freshmen that are going to be around for a very long time. This is number 8 in the state, Sloboda, and Max Tancini, number 10. This is a high-powered matchup. You can't miss this one. And also, I wouldn't look past Curtis Nelson from Ridley and McCaden Speece from Wilson Westlawn. That is another really big matchup. Curtis Nelson last year was a state qualifier. Speece has a couple wins over Thunderbeard and comes in ranked number 6th. And Curtis Nelson, number 7. So you have two top 10 matchups right out of the gate here at 107. So I'm looking forward to seeing those two.
And how important is Tancini and Sloboda's match as far as
Huge.
being a state medalist? Because you win that match, you may get, Yorty, Hoffman, Weaver, any of those guys can come out of that little section. But there's a good chance that Tancini or Sloboda can make the semifinals. You lose that match, you drop into the consolations where you get the loser of Mazenko Sirianni.
Right.
So now you go from being a potential state semifinalist, top 6 in the state, to potentially not being on the top 8 and on the awards podium. That's how important that match between Tancini and Sloboda is.
I mean, it's critical. Like you said, it's critical. And I do agree with you when you look at that part of the bracket. Braden Weaver is solid. But I think that quadrant with Weaver, Yorty, and Hoffman, like that, I think they're all pretty equally matched. You got 8, 12, and 15. Not a ton of differences between them. I really do think that the winner of Tancini and Sloboda has a very good shot to get to the semifinals. And it likely could be against Weaver. In fact, that's who I have coming out. But yeah, that you're right. Those, and Mitch and I talked about it. Paul and I talked about winning those early round matches on the front side is so much. It's so critical in Hershey, right? I mean, those are the guys that are going to get on the podium, not necessarily the guys who lose early. And sure, if they get on a roll, but yeah, man, those matches are so critical. So yeah, Tancini, Sloboda, you got to watch that one.
The rest of that bottom half, I mean, at this point, Jeff, is there anyone that can beat Keanu Dillard?
I don't think so. He's pretty locked in. He's pretty solid, much like Nathan Desmond was last year. Dillard had, the only thing that hurts him is he had a late start to the season. We haven't seen him at a ton outside of District 11. And we saw him at the state tournament as well. Don't get me wrong, but for only 20, I mean, I say only 20 matches, but in today's day and age, that's half of what most guys are getting, right? So, I don't think it's gonna affect him too much. He's in a Bethlehem Catholic room with just, stud after stud after stud. He's with Nathan Desmond every day. No, I don't think it's gonna bother him. Dillard is the real deal, man. Dillard is. He has a win over, a few wins over Aaron Seidel. That's definitely shows you where he's at, right? He's locked in and loaded, ready to go. So I don't think anyone can beat Dillard. I think at the top half, I do like Mazenko. I have him and Smith going at it in that first round. So I have Gus Smith over Chris. I have Suriani over Bishop. I have Thunderbird. I got him going out over Salomon from Easton. And I have Martinelli beating Montoya after he beats Fuller. And I do have Suriani beating Mazenko, and I have Martinelli beating Beard. And Suriani beating Martinelli. So I have Suriani in the finals. I have Hoffman beating Yordi. I have Weaver beating Hoffman. I have Sloboda beating Tansini. Weaver beating Sloboda. I have Spieth beating Nelson. I have Linehan beating Barrett. I have Dillard beating Linehan. Dillard beating Spieth. Dillard beating Weaver. Dillard over Sirianni in the finals. So I don't know what you got.
There you have it. 107.
What do you got?
Well, I like the picks. To be honest,
what are your picks? You got to man up here. You can't just let me go out on a limb here. You got to go out on a limb.
Well, if you want me to repeat what you just said, for the most part, I like what you said, because I do have Sirianni going to the final. Got Mazenko taking on Sirianni in that quarterfinal matchup.
You're gonna get some hate from those Ken and Mac, the Slack pack, bro.
Yeah.
You know how many coaches? You know how many people text me afterwards and said, "Why did you pick this guy? We're gonna piss pound this guy. Come on, man. It's just picks. Just having fun."
Hey, I hope that they prove us wrong, right? Whoever's upset proves us wrong, because that means we saw some great wrestling. That's what it means.
I agree.
As far as Beard and Martinelli, I like Martinelli there in that matchup over Beard. I do like Montoya to face Martinelli. Same thing. Martinelli and Sirianni in that semifinal, and Sirianni, because of his experience and being on the award stand twice, I like him to get to the final. The only difference I'd say on the bottom half, I have Sloboda and Weaver, and I have Sloboda getting to that semifinal. Yeah. And then I think Dillard is going to get there, and obviously I expect Dillard to win the whole thing. So, so that's where I'm at 107 pounds, and should be fun to see though, and would love to see that we're wrong on some of these, Jeff. Because
that's the point, right? That's why we do it. And you talk about Sloboda and Tansini, like at Sloboda, again, he didn't look great at the regional, so it's a recency bias that I have, is like looking at what he did this weekend. Like I don't know if he was sick. I don't know what it was, but he just didn't look like himself. So to me, that doesn't bode well going into the state tournament. But if he's wrestling like he was 2 weeks ago, he's beating Tansini and he's going to the semifinals. Just the way it is.
And that's the thing. Maybe he needed that loss to just reset. That was his first loss. Now he's got that bugaboo, so to speak, off of his back, and now he can just go out and focus on doing what he needs to do. 114 pounds. You got Nathan Desmond at the top half. Also have Tyler Kapusta of Franklin Regional up there. You have Chris Dennis of Central Bucks West and Logan Sallet of Erie McDowell. You have on the bottom half, which has some really good matchup potentials, you got Luke Willishell as well as Carson Wagner and our boy Dyson Gold as well down in the bottom half. You got Caden Williams down there as well. Some interesting matchups here coming up, Jeff.
Yeah, looking at this bracket, I'm just like, geez. The hits just keep on coming, right? There's no breathing room here at 114 pounds. As far as early round matchups, there's not a ton of early round matchups that I'm looking at that I'm like, you got to get it. I do like the Luke Reeder from Council Rock South versus Chris Kelly match. Those are two guys that have very similar styles and very similar opponents. So I think, and that's a number 12 versus 13. Reader is 12. Kelly is 13. You look at Kapusta. Kapusta losing puts him in a good position against Braxton Kiefer, which I believe he'll win that, but he feeds right into Desmond, right? Chris Dennis, on the other hand, winning the Southeast region, has a great draw with Drew Scher, who I believe he'll win that one. Connor Smith, man. Connor Smith and Kapusta, you watched that match. You called that match, right? What were your thoughts on that match?
I thought Connor Smith was dominating for about 5.5 minutes of that match, and then Capusta came back late, got those back points to be able to tie the match up and then get the takedown overtime. I honestly thought Connor Smith, outside of take away that last 30 seconds, well, had a really great tournament.
Yeah, I agree. I thought he had a really good tournament. I thought, I definitely thought him and Kapusta could go back and forth, and I'm not surprised by the way it ended. I guess I was a little bit. It was just a weird flurry that last 30 seconds, right? It was just an interesting flurry. But outside of that, you have solid Logan Sallet of McDowell. He's on that top half as well. He is the kind of like enigma here. He is the guy who I think a lot of people are gonna say, all right, what do we got here with him? He's a senior. He's never placed at the state tournament before. He was a regional fifth last year, state qualifier the year prior to that. He's actually down a weight. And you look at his results for this year. I mean, he's got a lot of big time results. Has a win over Connor Smith, so I think he is locked in. But he's likely going to see Connor Smith in a rematch in that first round. So that to me is a huge first round matchup should that happen if Connor Smith gets past Isaac Williams. So I really like that one. But outside of that, I think it's going to go pretty much chalk. I think Desmond Kapusta and Chris Dennis and that Salad and Chris or Connor Smith match, it could go either way.
I agree. I think it's going to be Desmond Capusta and Dennis. I like Connor Smith over Salad. And just to go one step further, Jeff, to stay on the top half of the bracket, I like Connor Smith to get to the semifinals. From
Wow.
last week and watching him wrestle, I thought he really, again, take away that 30 seconds where Capusta put him on his back to be able to tie the match. I thought he wrestled really well. Obviously, I like Nathan Desmond to get to the to finals and win the 114 weight class. But that's my top half. I like Connor Smith to get to the semi.
I mean, shout out to Greg Warnock going out on a limb here. I mean, I like it. I like you mixing it up a little bit. I would say, if you look back at their results, right? It was back in January this year. Yeah, it was early January this year where Sallet beat him 7-6. So really a match that could go either way, right? Sallet has looked he has looked really good. His only losses are to Pisarcek and to Louis Gill. Beat Connor Smith. Had a big win over Ty Kapusta already this year. He that was a big time win for him. Has a win over Nico Finella. So you're looking at his body of work. He's really dialed in. He's really good. Connor's, but maybe not as tested as Connor Smith was. But if you look on transitive property, he has a win over Connor Smith and he has a win over Ty Kapusta, right? Ty Kapusta just beat Connor Smith, so you would think he's the guy. But Greg Warnock here, maybe a little bit of Whippeal bias. I don't know. What is it?
It could be. It could be. I'm going off what I saw from Connor Smith. I thought he wrestled really well in a match that's a 7-6 score, and you know as well as anybody, just because this person beat this person, that
Oh,
piece of
100,
person beat that person, that doesn't mean that person's gonna win, right? So,
100%.
yeah, and to me, if you take away those 30 seconds, which you can't, but Connor Smith gets that W. So, I don't know. I think here's what I will say though, that I think if you're looking for must-see matches in the top half of 114. It's going to be where Connor Smith is. It's going to be him and Salad. It's going to be him and Dennis. I think those are going to be two fantastic matchups to watch if you're looking for one on the top half of 114.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. The top half is maybe a little bit more wide open, but the bottom half, we got to go into the bottom half and how crazy this is. Luke Willishell and Caden Williams. That match has to happen. Those two. I mean, even if they don't meet, like they gotta have that. They gotta have that match. Luke Willishell and Carson Wagner, another match that I'm so much looking forward to. And unfortunately for our boy Dyson Gold, he runs into Carson Wagner, just an absolute hammer, right? We know what he's been able to do over his 4 years now. A 3-time state medalist, 6th, 5th, and 4th. This year he was second out of the region, so we know how good he is. He's going to Binghamton. He's a very talented wrestler. Him and Luke Willishell could be an absolute barn burner. That's number 3 versus number 4 in the state in the quarterfinals. I do like Cole Coffin too. from Penridge. This Penridge team has wrestled really well down the stretch. Very well coached there. Coffin is a state qualifier a year ago. He's number 11 in the state. I think he beats Isaiah P. Jackson and has a match with Willishow. I do expect Willishow to win that one and face Carson Wagner. Alex Reed and Cole McFarland is an interesting one. Cole McFarland last year had a huge win. Beat Sirianni, it just kind of burst into the semifinals, ends up making it to the 5th place and winning 5th place there. Shout out to Cole McFarland Haverford. But I would say that matchup with Alex Reed is a good one. Alex Reed has improved a lot over the year. I do expect McFarland to potentially come out on top of that one. Tyson Cook, he's another one, man. Tyson Cook has looked good this year. Had some pretty big wins, beat Ty Kapusta. He's on the bottom half with Caden Halbert, who also had a really good last month or last few weeks, right? To make it to the state tournament, that was really impressive for him because he's not the guy from West Allegheny most people were talking about. But I do believe Williams and McFarland will wrestle, and I do believe Williams will get out. Face the winner of Willishow and Wagner. But, I mean, selfishly, I hope it's Willishow and Williams just because I think that's such a good clash. I think that could be like a 15-10 match by the time it's over.
Who do you like in it?
Man. Williams is wrestling like the Williams of 2 years ago. He's not wrestling like the Williams of last year. Williams has now the only bugaboo for Williams is, of his 20 matches, he hasn't faced nearly the competition level that Luke Willishow has wrestled. How much is that going to play into it? I don't know. Like he rolled through the South Central Regional, but the South Central Regional at 114 was not good, right? I'm not saying it was not good. It wasn't deep at all, right? Man, I do have Willishow winning. I don't know, man. I don't know.
There's your pick.
I mean, it's my pick, but I mean, ask me tomorrow, I could change. I mean, I know it's written down, it's on paper, but I think Willishow, he finds ways to win, right? Against guys like Tyler Kapusta. He just finds ways. Like this last time he wrestled, he was like, I was feeling myself gas a little bit, and I knew I had to get a takedown, and he got a takedown. Like it was almost like just automatic to him. So that's why maybe I'm going with Willishow. But man, there's a lot of tough talent on the bottom half between Willishow, Wagner, McFarland, and Williams. And I'll throw in Tyson Cook and Alex Reed. There's just a ton of talent. Cole Coffin as well. The bottom half is a meat grinder.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And one thing, I know you're making all the picks, so you didn't make your top pick in your quarterfinal between Dennis and Sallet, since you had Sallet over Smith. Who did you like?
Oh, yeah. So one? I have Sallet, and Desmond. I have Desmond. I have, let's see here. I have Desmond, Kapusta, with Desmond winning that. I have Dennis over Shearer. I have Sallet over Smith, Sallet over Dennis, Desmond over Sallet, Willishow over Williams, Desmond over Willishow. That's what I got.
I made my top half already. My bottom half is, I like Cole Coffin, I like Willishow, I like Wagner, I like Willishow, and McFarland, Cook, and then Williams to wrestle Willishow, and I like Willishow as well in that semifinal. I think it's gonna be great. And obviously, as much as I'd like to say Willishow winning it all, Nate Desmond's too tough to beat. So I expect Bethlehem Catholic to go back to back at 107 and 114. 121 pounds at the let's start the top half. Jeff Cale Nasdio of Williamsport sitting at the top spot. You also have Southwest Region champ Ryan Klingensmith, who just dominated the action in the WPIL. Not I would say the most top end guys, but definitely it was a deep one at 121, a weight class that could have went any number of ways if wrestled again. But I think one thing is for sure, Klingensmith would have come out on top every time because he just dominated the weight. But you also got Marco Tacci up there. You got C.J. Horvath of Bethlehem Freedom up there as well. So top half has some. I mean, let's be honest. Every weight class has studs all over, but 121 has some good matchups potentially.
Yeah, 121 is pretty loaded. It's much like the Whippeal was when we talked about just the parity there, right? Um, Klingensmith was amazing, right? Klingensmith was nothing short of just absolutely dominating. And a lot of people were asking me like, who's this Ryan Klingensmith? And let's not forget he had not made it to a state tournament previously, right? 3-time regional qualifier, ends up coming out and winning it, right? And if you go on our page, our Rockfin page, and you watch the interview with him, he talks about how, the weight cut was a struggle, and then he was going to go 33, and then 27, you saw the hammers at 27, 33. He's like, you know what, I'm going to go down to 21, and it paid off for him, right? And I agree with you. He was so dominant. I do agree that no matter how you shake it, he probably would have came out on top. But, the kind of crappy part for him is he feeds right into Marco Tassi of Warwick, and
Yep.
Tassi's an absolute stud. I love Marco Tassi, state qualifier. Just like his brother Nico has just gotten better and better and better and better. You know, Tossi's 6 in the state, Klingensmith's 10. So that's to me is a big time matchup. Jimmy Garcia is also up there on the top half. Quinn McBride, I do believe Garcia is going to win that. Cale Nasdio, you think back to what he's been able to do. He was a state runner-up during the COVID year. Last year, battled some injuries, right? He defaulted down the 6th, and he just didn't look himself. He didn't look like a state runner-up. This year, totally different. Outside of that first opening loss to Wagner at the top hat, he's been lights out, and he's just been destroying people. I think he's locked in. I think he's feeling it. I do expect Nasdio to come out there from the top half, but Klingensmith and Tossi, that's a really good matchup. I really like CJ Horvath from Freedom. He's a senior that just has chipped away and gotten better and better and better. He comes in ranked number 2 in the state. So you've got number 1, number 2 on the top half. Is it a clear number 2? No. I mean, but he has a win over Ziegler. He has he has a loss to Cam Williams. He has a loss to Botero, but he has some pretty big wins, including that one over Jimmy Garcia, Ziegler, and Wagner. So yeah, that to me is a pretty deep weight class on the top half. I think Horvath makes it out to the semifinals there. I believe that Tossi's going to beat Klingensmith, and I know I'm going to get Coach Heater, and this is going to be on me. I'm waiting for the text on my phone right now. You son of a, just go ahead, pick against us. We'll just go out and prove you wrong. I can see it. I can hear him now. Someone's got to win. Someone's got to pick, right? That top half though is really a nice bracket. The bottom half doesn't get any easier though, Greg. Look at where the Whippeal falls into. Brady Joling gets Trey Wagner. Okay, Jacob Layton. I like that match with Elijah Hewitt, although Hewitt scares. He's a little scary. I think he could really do some damage there potentially. And Dean Hauser on that bottom half. Dean Hauser has had just an absolute lights out last 3 weeks in the postseason, so I'm expecting him to do good things. And Joling's going to have a really tough first round matchup with Trey Wagner, the younger brother of Carson Wagner.
Yeah, you look at the top half, and and the bottom, like you said, the bottom just as equally as challenging. But that top half, to me, McBride and Garcia is going to be a toss up. I'll go McBride there just to switch it up. Klingensmith, though, if you'd asked me a week ago, I would say Tossi's the guy. I would be taking him, but the way I just saw him dominate what I thought was good wrestlers here from the PAL at 121. Again, I'm saying they're not all state medalists by any means, but they're good wrestlers, and he just totally dominated. I'm gonna take Klingensmith there in that match. Don't worry, Coach here, I got you. But I'm gonna take Klingensmith there. But I will say I think Horvath and Nasio are on a collision course in the semifinals. Just two of the top guys in the state. It's going to be a great semifinal matchup. If you're looking for, as far as semifinal matches, I'm sure you're watching both of them at the same time, but that one's going to be just a really exciting one to watch. But, like Nasdio to make it to that final on the top half, just like you had, mentioned yourself, Jeff. On the bottom, I like Layton to win that first one, but that Layton Ziegler match, I think you're looking for a matchup early on, that could be a good one to see. But I do like Ziggler to come out on that one as far as that goes. And yeah, Dean Hauser on the bottom half. You'd hate to go chalk, right? You always want to call as a couple of upsets, but Ziggler and Hauser, um, yeah, it's hard to say that they won't be in that semifinal. Although I think Trey Wagner's going to have a lot to say about trying to pull some upsets there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Trey Wagner's. I mean, he's pretty good. He wrestled most of the year at 27, came down to 21. He's been wrestling really well. They're a little bit more battle tested than most. And yeah, I'm 121. I think Ziegler on that bottom half. He's been wrestling really nonstop since last year, when he did not end up getting a state medal. After getting a state medal his freshman year, I don't think that sat well with him not getting a medal as a sophomore. So I think he's just been really dialed in. The hard thing is, like, a lot of these guys train together. A lot of these guys are familiar. Ziegler, Hauser, Garcia, they're all Marsteller kids. They're all Stellar trained kids. You just have a lot of guys that are familiar with each other. So there may be things going on in the room that you're like, that mental edge that, like, I mean, I've beaten him. I've gotten a lot. I get takedowns on him at will, or I can ride him out. And you kind of know that wrestling with them. So it's a lot of these guys are very familiar with each other, which also makes it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So you got so as far as who's your champion, who do you have winning it all at 121?
Nasdio. I'm sorry. I thought I said Nasdio. Yeah, I have Nasdio beating Horvath. I have Horvath coming out, and I have Ziegler beating Hauser. Nasdio over Ziegler. I mean, Nasdio's locked in. Here's the thing about 121. 121, I could say legitimately there's 5, and I said the same thing in Dubway at a few weights. There's 5 guys that if they're staying on top of the podium, I'm not going to be shocked. Now there's tiers. I would say Nasdio, Horvath, and Ziegler are kind of in one, and then I would throw in like Dean Hauser, Ryan Klingensmith, Tassi, James Garcia,
Trey Wagner
into another one. And then I would say that's it. That's it for that tier. I mean, Hunter Johnson is good, but I think he's going to beat Scotty Raymond, but I just don't see him beating Mason Ziegler. So,
yeah, I'm with you. 127 pounds at the top. It's Vinny Kilkeary of Latrobe. Also on the top half of that bracket on the region champs, Hayden Cunningham of State College, Tyler Adams of York Suburban. The region champs down below, Tahir Parkins of Nazareth, as well as Aaron Cement of Council Rock North. And then you got several guys who finished second, third, fourth in the region. That makes this bracket deep, just like all the others.
I mean, yeah, but this one's a little bit more deep, right? I mean, look at the amount of talent here at 127 pounds. We have Vinny Kilkeary, 2-time state champion. We have Hayden Cunningham, who has just been, he missed 2 seasons because of an injury, right? And this year he's been nothing short of spectacular, wrestling really well. You have Aaron Cement. He last year had a great tournament, ended up finishing third after losing to Kapusta, came back. He's been really solid, had a really good Powerade tournament, I thought. But then you throw in guys that have already medaled at the state tournament, in addition to Kilkeary and Cement, right? You have Seamus Mack. You have Tyler Chappell, right? You have these guys that have been on the podium before, with a bunch of other guys that are they're very close. Tahir Parkins, Andrew Binney. You have Luke Menser, who I thought has wrestled really well. Hayden Coy, look, whatever Penn Trafford had on Saturday or even Friday night, like we need to replicate that, because they wrestled out of their minds on Saturday. And Coy was able to get that win over Chappell to end up finishing in third here. So that to me is a big one. The best first round matchup, in my opinion, of 127 is Andrew Binney versus Luke Menser, number 5 versus number 8. I think that's a big time matchup. These guys have they've had similar opponents. They've had different looks. They both have wrestled Seamus Mack, who comes in ranked number 7. So you got, if you look at the rankings, it's Binney, Adams, Mack, and Menser. Tyler Adams had one of the best regional tournaments of any wrestler across the state, and unfortunately, he's likely to get Tyler Chappell. Although I'm not looking past that. Shane McFillin and Tyler Chappell match is a really good first round matchup. Tyler Chappell has had this bugaboo where it's between his ears. The talent is there. He gets in his own head, right? And when guys shut down on him, and let's be honest, he's undersized. He should be at 121, but he is where he is. He weighs in just like everybody else does. And, I'm not saying that's part of the struggle, but I'm just saying, now Tyler Chappell, a guy who was 3rd in the state at one time, is now, 4th out of the Southwest and looking, at feeding right into a regional champ.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what Tyler Chappell shows up. I think we talked about this about his brother Dylan back in the day, which, by the way, he had a great weekend this past weekend.
Yes, right.
Finishing in 2nd place, but in his conference. But Tyler Chappell, I mean, he's the same way as his brother. He's got all the talent in the world, and it's just a matter of, can he get to his offense? He can shut down most guys. He can ride almost anybody. But can he get to his offense? Can he put up enough points and able to win? And so McFillin's, I think that's going to be a good matchup. It depends what Tyler Chappell shows up. He could easily, win and win big, or he could lose that match. I also would not be surprised, though, if Tyler Chappell not only beats McFillin, but beats Adams.
Yep.
Do I think he's going to beat Hayden Cunningham? I don't. I think Hayden Cunningham is going to win that match. But I mean, I'm going to go on a limb, and I know my WPIL homer in me, I guess, is what people are probably saying right now. But, I think Chappell gets it done, on day one with McFillin and Adams and gets his way to the quarterfinals. You look at the other top half, I like Flanagan to get to Kilkerry, but Kilkerry to defeat Flanagan. I think, Finelli of Easton, Boyer of Kennett, I think it's a toss-up match. You can go with Finelli there just because, the experience factor with Easton. But I like Kilkerry to get to the semis, and I like Cunningham to be in that semi, and I like Kilkerry to be in the final. You look on the bottom half, I agree with Menser and Binney being a great matchup. Again, I mean, it's a toss-up match. Andrew Binney's just been a giant slayer for much of the season. He's pulled off
all the season.
Going back to the surge. He's knocking off guys. So that's how long he's been doing it, all season long. And I believe they wrestled, he and Parkins wrestled at the Surge, if I might be wrong. But, again, these two guys, I think it's going to be a great matchup in the quarterfinal. I'm going to go with Parkins just because of the talent that he has. But it would not surprise me if Andrew Binney can pull off the upset. Seamus Mack on the bottom half, I think he and Aaron Cement is going to be a great match. I wouldn't put it past Hayden Coy to put a little bit of a scare in the Cement. At the end of the day, I like Aaron Cement to win that matchup. But there's just so many good matchups in that bottom half in the opening rounds.
There's so many good matches, and on that bottom half, I like Michael Turry from West Grand. The Turry boys have really wrestled well. I think him and Hayden Coy is a good matchup. It's a 10 versus 17, but I really think that's a toss-up. And I agree, whoever wins that, Coy's a better matchup for Ed and Cement than Turry is. I think if Coy wins that, I think he's going to cause more problems to Cement than Turry would. Let's look back at you talked about the Giant Slayer, Andrew Binney, and I just, got to go through some of the wins he has. He's beaten Seamus Mack 9-7. He's beaten Cohen Baney of Baltimore area 8-3. Gavin Sheridan, he's beaten 8-4. He beat Ethan Lieben 8-4. Lost to Tyler Chappell. Lost to Mason Kiernan. Then he goes on a tear. Beats Chris Vargo, who's the number 1 ranked kid in the state in AA. Has wins over Darius McMillan. He has now we talked about Luke Menser. They're wrestling in the first round. Andrew Binney beat him 10-0 back at the team state tournament. That's pretty damn good. And then he beat Tahir Parkins' teammate, Charlie Bunting, 9-7 in overtime. So outside of that loss to Kilkerry, he beat Chapel 3-1, beat Hayden Coy 4-3, which, okay, I will give it to you. Those two matches, Hayden Coy, he beat him 12-4 a few weeks prior, so maybe he was closing the gap a little bit. I don't think Andrew Binney's slowing down, so I expect him to beat Menser because he beat him 10-0 just a few weeks ago. And I expect Binney to beat Parkins. I'm not going to lie. I have Binney coming out. I think Binney's just pace and his aggressive style, I think it bodes really well for him against Parkins, so I expect him to come out. I like Seamus Mack over Stab, and I like Eden Cement there, and I like Cement over Mack, but I think that's a toss-up there. That's number 7 versus number 3. I have Binney making the state finals.
Wow.
There it is. Got Binney making the state finals.
That's a gutsy call right there,
Is
Jeff.
it? I mean, I don't. The way he's been wrestling, I don't know if there's anyone other than Kilkerry who can beat him.
I say gutsy because he's been the Giant Slayer, but he's also got quite a path to get there.
I mean, okay, if he has quite the path. I mean, the first match, with Menser's very dangerous. That's a 5 versus 8, but again, he has a 10-0 decision over him. Mentally, that's got to play into it a little bit. I think Parkins is, definitely probably one of the hardest matchups that he's going to have. I think Cement, I mean, they didn't wrestle. Cement finished higher at the Powerade tournament, but they didn't wrestle. I just like Binney's style. I think he's gonna be a style matchup for a lot of these guys. Problem here, and Chapel and McFillan. That's one I definitely am keeping an eye on. I would not be. I agree with you 100%. It's depending on what Tebow shows up. Tebow could very well find himself in the quarterfinals with a chance against Hayden Cunningham, and I think even that match, he's in every match. But if he does not show up, we see what happens, right? But Tyler Adams has also kind of been a little bit of a Giant Slayer, albeit not very much as long as Binney, but close, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I think Blake Boyer and Ben Finelli of Easton, that's a 13 versus 12. I think that's a really good first-round matchup as well on the top half. Unfortunately for my boy Liam Flanagan, should he win in that first round, he's going to feed right into Kilkerry. So kind of a bummer there. So my picks are Kilkerry over Boyer. I have Boyer over Finella. I have Cunningham beating Adams. I have Chapel beating McFillan but falling to Adams. Cunningham beating Adams in the quarterfinals. Kilkerry making it to the finals. Parkins over Delaney. Binney over Menser. Binney over Parkins. Mack over Stab. Cement over Coy. And Cement over Mack. Binney over Cement. Kilkerry over Binney.
Well, Jeff, I know you got your second half of AAA coming up in about 15 minutes, so we're gonna have to find a way to get through.
We can push that back a little bit. Most of these folks are just gonna jump right back on, I'm sure.
I'd hope so. I mean, this is what you need to hear right now as you go into 133. Maddox Shaw of Thomas Jefferson, the regional champ on the top half. Also have Gavin Sheridan of Boyertown, Jared Fulton of Solanco also there. Bottom half, Luke Simcox of Central Mountain. You have Charlie Bunting of Nazareth. But then you got guys like Rocco Fratelli. You got Ethan Lieben all on the bottom half as well. So let's look at the top half first, Jeff, as far as the first matchups and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, so just looking at the top half here, Maddox Shaw is clearly the guy. Cale McIntyre's is the weird one here. McIntyre coming into the regional tournament, I thought he was number 2 in the state. He has a win over Luke Simcox, and he ends up losing to Dermistat of Pocono Mountain East, who then loses to Charlie Bunting. So that really kind of screwed up things a little bit, because had McIntyre won that, I think he's in a different place. He was a 6th place finisher 2 years ago, state qualifier last year. So now instead, that sets up a big time matchup with him and Jared Fulton. That's a number 6 versus number 9 match right out of the gate, which I really like. Demerstat from Pocono Mountain East is just, he's got some weird results. He's got some matches where I'm like, man, he's locked in, and others you're just like, I don't know how he lost that one. He has a win over Prasarchek. He has a win over Courtney and Finelli, but he doesn't. It's Pocono Mountain East. We don't see him a whole ton, right? Whereas a guy like Luke Simcox, yeah, we know those 4 losses are really all tough losses. The South Central Regional here is very deep. Rocco Fratelli and Eli Bounds have gone back and forth. Eli Bounds is a state medalist. He was 7th last year in Double-A. Ethan Lieben, another one. I mean, he lost to Luke Simcox at the team state tournament, and he was not in that match. You know, I don't think he believed that he could win that one because Luke Simcox just took it right to him. So if Lieben wins and Simcox, now Simcox is in a really tough little quadrant there because you got number 12 and number 13, Eli Bounds and Gunnar Myers. That is a can't miss pigtail match. Gunnar Myers and Eli Bounds. Gunnar Myers was a state medalist 2 years ago. Eli Bounds was a state medalist last year. That's one you got to watch. The winner there gets Luke Simcox. I think Luke Simcox wins that, but again, crazier things have happened than Lieben and Simcox. I think he just kind of has his number, right? That's a number 2 versus number 3 in the state. But after looking at the results of what happened at the team state tournament, I feel pretty good about that. It's that bottom quadrant that has me kind of going nuts because that first round matchup with Carmen Cortez of Henderson and Rocco Fratelli, I'm going back and forth at that. Cortez right now I have number 8, Fratelli 10. So that one to me is you can't miss that one. Charlie Bunting, just like Tyler Chappell, it depends on what Charlie Bunting shows up. He's got a torn labrum. He talked about that last week, and if you look at our interview on Rockfin, it's on there. But that first round matchup, he could get Anthony Ferraro from Pine Richland. Ferraro has a legit shot of making it to the quarterfinals and potentially the semifinals. Just going to throw it out there.
That'd be huge. And this was another crazy weight at 133 because, one thing you didn't mention about Gabe Ruggieri of Connellsville. Talk about pulling some big upsets, beating guys like Mason Kernan and Darius McMillan just to be able to get to the state tournament. He pulled off some big wins. So could he pull off some upsets in this one as well? But you look at that, you look at the top half. I like Shaw to get to the semifinals. Actually, I like Maddox Shaw to get to the final. Demarest, I like him in that opening round. I like Cale McIntyre over Jared Fulton in the upset, and I like Cale McIntyre to knock off Gavin Sheridan after Sheridan beats Ruggieri of Connellsville. On the bottom half, yeah, I mean, I think the matchup that's going to decide who's going to be in the final is Simcox and Lieben. I do like Eli Bounds in that opening match, but it's going to be a great one. Fratelli, I like him to win. And boy, picking it's tough. I mean, I like Ferraro obviously in that opening match. He is a tough wrestler. He is somebody who, to me, is very undervalued, I guess you could say. A guy that a lot of people don't know a lot about. And he's going to give Bunting everything he can handle in this one. To not be a Whippio homer, I'll go Bunting here, but I think it's going to be a great matchup between the two. And I like Bunting to beat Fratelli in that quarterfinal. But, boy, I mean, I think the tough one for me, Jeff, is picking Simcox and Lieben. Boy, I mean, I think you can flip a coin, and it depends on, which one shows up because Lieben wrestled Maddox Shaw really tough, and I thought he had a really good tournament as well throughout the WPIL. But, and he was fortunate as far as, some upsets that happened early on. He didn't get Darius McMillan because McMillan got upset in the opening round, ended up with Ruggieri instead of Kernan. So it didn't go the way that we thought as far as Lieben and some of the challenges he was going to have. But at the end of the day, he did what he needed to do and dominated his way to the final before wrestling Shaw. I'm going to go Luke Simcox, but I think it's going to be I think that one's going to be a super tough match. And at the end of the day, Maddox Shaw, I think this is his year to win a state title.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Maddox Shaw's dialed in. I think he's poised to win a state title. I will just mention, Greg, go back and watch that match from the state team tournament. I know it's a few weeks ago now, but Simcox beat Lieben 8-0. He really controlled that match. So I mean, much like Benny and Menser, if I beat a guy 10-0 or 8-0, like even if I have not so good of a match, I'm still beating him by maybe 2 or 3, right? So I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I'm not losing to a guy I just beat by major decision. That's now Ethan Lieben has been wrestling better, no doubt about it. He wrestled Maddox Shaw a lot better than I expected him to in the finals of the Whitfield tournament. So I agree with you there. I have Shaw beating Dermostat. I have McIntyre beating Fulton. I have Sheridan beating Ruggieri. I have McIntyre beating Sheridan, Shaw beating McIntyre. I have Simcox beating Bounds. I think we're the exact same. I have Lieben beating Langle. I have Simcox beating Lieben, Fratelli beating Cortez. I have Bunting beating Ferrero, and Bunting beating Fratelli, and Simcox beating Bunting. But honestly, that bottom quadrant, I am not confident at all. I think Cortez, Fratelli, Bunting, or Ferraro all have a shot. And I'm not throwing out Ben Brillhart from Council Rock South. I'm never going to throw out Brad Sillen-Perry and Trap McCormick trained wrestler. However, Ferraro, I think, is the guy there. And honestly, all 4 of those guys, I think, have a chance to make it out. I really don't know who's going to make it out from there.
Yeah, if I'm looking at 133 as far as matchups to watch in the opening rounds, I mean, McIntyre, Fulton at the top, but I'm looking at that bottom half to see who comes out into the quarterfinals from those 4, and even those 5. Right? Can Ferraro win that opening match, and where's it going to go from there? 139 pounds. This weight class is bonkers.
Top heavy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Pearson Manville at the top. Nate Roth. Yeah, got to the Whitfield final, made it through. He's in the state tournament, and he's actually wrestling. So how healthy is he? We don't know. But he did get to the WPL finals, and I thought until that final against Eli Carr, who Eli Carr had a heck of a tournament, I thought Nate Roth was looking really, really good. So that's on the top half. And then you got in the bottom half with Eli Carr, you got Dalton Perry, you got Colin Rath, Connor Saylor is down there, Lonzy Vilma. You got, I mean, my goodness, it's there's top heavy with Manville and Perry and Rath, but then you got some of these other guys like a Carr, like a Roth. A lot of good talent here.
Yeah, I mean, the thing here for me is the 3 horsemen. You know, you got Colin Rath, Pearson Manville, and Dalton Perry, all guys ranked nationally top 10. Pearson Manville, what he was able to do last year at the state tournament was unlike any other, right? We know what he did. Beat 2 returning state champions, beat Tyler Kasak, then beats Briar Priest. Manville's going to have, I think he's definitely on the easier side of the bracket just because he's away from Rath and Dalton Perry, who he's kind of had Dalton Perry's number the last few weeks. Now that can flip on a dime though too. We've seen Dalton Perry peak at the state tournament. Didn't have the best power rate as a freshman, and then comes back strong and finishes strong.
Yeah, didn't even medal.
No, he didn't. So for me, Dalton Perry and Colin Rath are. I mean, these 3 are. I'm not. I don't want to discount the fact that Connor Saylor is a really good wrestler. And I would also argue that Nate Roth and Eli Carr are really good wrestlers. But I just think it's such a. These 3 are head and shoulders, I think, above the rest of the field here. And I don't think there's going to be much. I think the 3 of them are kind of on a collision course, if you will. So Rath and Perry, I expect to meet in the semifinals. I expect Pearson Manville to punch his ticket to the finals. Although I think Nate Roth is going to pose problems to him, I just don't know if Roth is healthy enough and has enough in the gas tank, or just enough horsepower to get over Pearson Manville, who is just so damn good at position, hand fighting. He's so hard to score on. He rides like a dog. I mean, it's going to be really hard for him.
I'm interested to see how Nate Roth does, in that matchup, because I think a lot of people, or some people, I should say, not a lot, but some feel that if healthy, Nate Roth is in that conversation with those guys as far as being one of the top guys, not only in the state but in the nation.
I mean, I agree with you. We just haven't seen it. That's the problem.
Because he's not been healthy, yeah.
Correct. I mean, if you go back to his freshman year, I mean, he was a bigger coming into high school. He was a bigger name than Vinny Kilkeary was. Like that's what I'm saying. Like Nate Roth was that dude. Vinny Kilkeary was kind of undersized, and came on a little bit later, and it's just like a tale of 2 cities there. And Nate Roth is just, I mean, it sucks, But I agree, if he's fully healthy and ready to go, he's in that mix. But right now, I don't think he is. Not with Dalton Perry, Pearson Manville, and Colin Rath. The things that they've accomplished and the guys that they've beaten all season long and all year long are just unmatched. Like, those three are just in their own tier, their own environment up there. And I really don't see. I mean, Colin Rath's just. They need to build a statue of him outside of Becca High School because that's how damn good he is. I mean, I don't know. I think he beats Jordan Burroughs right now.
You're getting a little crazy, but let's look at this top half of the bracket, Jeff. So you like Manville obviously into the final. I like Nate Roth to wrestle Manville, and I think I'm really excited to see how that one plays out. On that bottom of the top half, Blake Reener of Trinity. I think he's going to win the first one, and I think that matchup with he and Elias Long is one to circle as far as if you're looking for a matchup to watch here in the round of 16. And I like Blake Reener in that match. I think he's got a very tough. As far as what wrestling in the WPIL and having being battle tested and wrestling these guys year day in day out. And to be honest, where he's at, as far as Sam Coons, Oliver Fairchild, I think that's another toss-up match that could go either way. I'll go. I mean, you could go either way, honestly. Fairchild Coons. I mean, it's a true toss-up match. I would go Fairchild if you want me to pick, but I like Blake Reener to get to the semifinals.
Yeah, so I'm right there with you. Unfortunately, we have very similar. So I have Pearson Manville over Jake Neal. I have Roth over Campbell. I have Coons over Fairchild. I have Reener over Karkoska of Owen J. Roberts. I have Reener over Eli Long. That's number 7 versus number 8 in the state. So I mean, Reener is ranked higher, but I do expect him to win that one. And then I have Reener over Coons. So I have Reener in the semifinals. I have Manville beating Roth, Manville beating Reener. I have Carr beating Austin Smith. I have Dalton Perry beating Gavin Reynolds. McMillan, I have winning. Rath beating Vielma. Connor Saylor. I have Connor Saylor beating Vielma. And Rath beating Perry. And Rath beating Manville.
I'll tell you what, you're looking for a first round matchup. How about Lonzy Vilma and Connor Saylor? That should be a great one out of the gates at 139 pounds.
Yeah.
And I like Rath, obviously. I'd go Saylor. I think Lonzy Vilma's been a little up and down this season.
That's a number 6 versus number 9, though. That's a can't miss pigtail round match. That's a number 6 Connor Saylor, a 2-time state medalist versus Lonzy Velma, a very talented sophomore who, you're right, has had some ups and downs, but that's a can't miss first round pigtail match.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun to see that one. And yeah, I like Perry and Carr, and like Dalton Perry. Obviously, I missed the rest, Jeff. Maybe you didn't say it, but Rath and Perry. You like Rath to win it all?
Rath.
Who do you?
Rath
all the way.
Yeah, Rath could win 4 or 5 weights here. I'm telling you, man, Rath's the king. He just I don't know, man. He's dialed in. He's locked in. I like Rath. That's it.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be Rath and Manville. I'm going to go Manville. He knocked off Kasak. He knocked off Lieben last year. I think he's going to be the guy to knock off Colin Rath. So we'll see how that plays out.
And is it truly knocking off? He's a returning state champ. He's expected to win that.
145 pounds, Mac Church of Waynesburg has won a couple of state titles, and he's sitting right there at the top. You got Asher Cunningham as well on the top half. And then obviously you got studs throughout this one as well, Jeff. Let's look at the top half first, though. You look at Mac Church. Do you like him to get to a final once again?
I do. I definitely like him to get to the finals because he's on the side. I think he's going to see Asher Cunningham in the semifinals. I think he's on a favorable side. His quadrant is not. There's not a lot of guys there that are going to be able to match him. I have him beating Monger, and I have Swan beating Carr, and then Mac Church beating Swan. Those guys just they're not on his level, right? And even on that bottom half, I have Doom beating Wilson. I have Cunningham beating Paris, and I also have Cunningham beating Dune. So Cunningham and Mac Church, I think, you're going to start seeing. Look, Asher Cunningham's tough. He's tough as nails. we've seen what he's been able to do. He has several wins over Griffin Walliser this year, so I think he's ready to go. But I still don't think he's going to be able to beat Mac Church. Really, to me, it's the bottom half. The bottom half, you have three guys that are legitimately looking to get into the finals that I all think are capable of getting there and potentially winning it. Especially those top two with Repos and Colin Guy.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the bottom half could go a number of ways. I agree with you as far as Cunningham and Church in the semi, with Church making it to the final, Dune winning there, Swan as well. You look at as far as on the bottom half though, you got Scanlon winning probably that first matchup, and Guy winning the next. Nico Taddy, I think he and Colin Guy are going to be a lot of fun to watch. Griffin Walliser, like him to win his opening match. And then I like Repos in order to get to that quarterfinal as well against Walliser. I do like Repos in the semifinal. The one that's, how does Nico Taddy do in that quarterfinal matchup?
Yeah, I mean, so much like Colin Rath, I'm super high on Colin Guy. This is going to shock a lot of people. I have Colin Guy winning the whole damn thing. I have Colin Guy winning it. The whole thing, and I think there's a variety of reasons why. I mean, he's been kind of unstoppable these last few months here, and he's just been so consistent, right? Mac Church, he's that dude. He is so good. I just think he's over high school. I think he's got a couple state championships. He's just, and Colin Guy's hungry. He's hungry. He's a sophomore. I don't know. I think that plays into it a little bit here. I like Colin Guy because I think he beats Taddy, and I think he beats Repos. And I'm not gonna lie to you. I think Repos is probably going to be his toughest challenge. Taddy's going to be there, but Guy's just. Go watch film on Guy. You'll see why I think he's the pick here.
You mentioned Mac Church. I think there's two matches that he would love to have back, right? As far as in his wrestling career, one of those was we mentioned it on our radio broadcast, the loss to Dylan Coy of North Allegheny, preventing him from being a 4-time WPL champion. And then the loss to Matt Repos of Central Dauphin, the controversial one in his freshman year that knocked him into the consolations. I think it'd be fitting, if he and Repos can meet in the final and have that.
Well, it'd be the second year in a row they meet in the finals.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that would just be a fitting end for Mac Church. When looking back on one of the two losses that he'd love to have back. But you're right, Colin Guy. I think he and Repos are going to be the semifinalists. And I think that's going to be, I'm going to trust your word on it because I don't know enough about Colin Guy to be brutally honest. Trust your word that he's the guy, but I don't think anything's going to stop Mac Church. I do think his mindset. He seems very nonchalant, right? Like, okay, I'm ready to go to Virginia Tech. I'm here just to kind of bide my time. But at the end of the day, he's Mac Church. He's a guy who's won 2 state titles. He's, two losses away from being a 4-time WPIL and 4-time state champion. How do you say that guy's not going to win another state title?
I agree with you 1,000%. I mean, and again, I think it's the talent is not there, and he even the talent's there. He even said it himself. He said, if you look back at the matches that I lost, I was the better wrestler. And I would agree with you. He was in his losses this year. I think he should have beaten Rath. He I don't know if he hesitated. I don't know if he paused. I don't know if he relaxed. But Colin Rath was able to execute and win that match. So it's not that the talent is missing. It's not that he's not capable. He's capable. It's just that these guys are, there's a bullseye on your back, right? And when in close matches, he lets the other guys sometimes dictate the pace, right? So one common opponent that I really honed in on for making this assessment is Sam Cartella from Western Reserve out in Ohio. Cartella is a guy who he's actually wrestled in the Surge before. he's wrestled a lot of Pennsylvania guys in the past. Colin Guy beat him 2-0 at the Escape the Rock. If you look at Mac Church, he wrestled him at the Ironman finals and beat him in tiebreaker 2-1. So again, we're talking about, and this is the most recent. This is the most recent common opponent that they have. I would say Church keeps it a little bit closer, whereas Guy, maybe puts an exclamation point on it a little bit, and instead of winning in a tiebreaker, wins a 2-0 decision. So, I think it's a multitude of factors. One, the hunted versus the hunter, and the mindset, senior versus sophomore, and been there, done that, ready for the next chapter versus, I can lose to guys that I'm better than, and that's a hard thing, but it's a fact. Like, so there's times when Mac Church loses when he's better than them. That Matt Repost match, I think he was better than Matt Repost that day. He lost to him. He should have beaten Carl Schinderdecker by a little bit more than he did. And that actually could have went another way. And I agree with you. Like, that loss to Dylan Coy, he's just there's times, right? But then there's times when he goes out and he, like, the Super 32. If he wrestles like he does in the Super 32, ain't nobody touching him. He wrestled so well. He's been so good at Super 32 over his career. If he had that same, I don't know, mindset, preparation, whatever it is, at the Super 32 than he did the state tournament, there's no one that's beating him. So I don't know. It's kind of one of those things.
Yeah, and I'll respect the fact that you're going out on a limb and making that pick, but at the end of the day, I'm taking Mac Church in this one at 145. Yeah. Well, Jeff, I know this ends our half of AAA, and you'll be jumping over to the second half, but should be a lot of fun. Excited to get things underway on Thursday, and make sure you look for those can't miss matchups in the opening rounds.
I'm excited. We have a ton of content coming at you here over the next few days. Greg, I hope we survive the trip out, since we're carpooling this year. The last time we've carpooled, I almost dumped you off on the turnpike.
Well, we didn't have.
And what's funny is the last time we did that, we had Dyson Gold with us, and now he's wrestling in the damn tournament. How cool is that?
We sure did. I think he was the one that was poking the bear a little bit. Let's throw some shade on him. How about that?
I mean, if you want to, that's cool. Pick on a sophomore in high school.
No, he's a junior, actually.
Junior. Pick on a junior in high school.
Get his information right.
I'm tired, and I still got another podcast to do, bro.
All right. Well, switch over, everybody. That's listening in and watching in. We appreciate you sticking with us for the first little over an hour as we broke down the first half of AAA. But stick with us here on Rockfin and PA Power Wrestling as we'll get you set for the second half of AAA coming up next here on the PIAA Championship Preview Show.